Good day, everyone. Today we will talk about ethics and law. So last time we talked branches of philosophy, and one of which is the axiology. So the axiology is a philosophical study that examines value and valuation. So one aspect of the axiology is what we're going to talk about today. The first topic, which is the ethics. Ethics is simply the moral principles that governs a person's behavior, or in other words, it is a code of conduct in abiding in such law or decision making of a person, the society where he lives, or in general of how he behaves. And its rule, effective communication, taking responsibility, being accountable, professionalism, trust, and mutual respect for your colleagues at work. While there are some unethical behaviors also, like lacking of moral principles or unwilling to adhere to proper rules of conduct at work or at place. So morals and ethics are greatly influenced by the society in which we live. So morals are collective view of what is right and wrong. So morals, it has to do with our day-to-day actions based on the principles or the ethics. So for example, should I steal coins from the coin basket? Or should I tell mom about the broken vase or the broken plate? So virtually every culture forbids stealing or lying, but there are some societies that are ignoring these morals as if it was right for them, or and just keep doing it. Just like in some parts of Africa, the husbands refuse to wear condoms even though they're having extramarital sex. Thus they expose their wives into HIV. So this clearly states that morals vary from one society to another. So in the society where laws are written that specify doings that are acceptable or not acceptable, so some people violate these laws, and that may bring them into loss of freedom and possessions. So therefore law is very important in the society. For example, in the community there are rules and regulations that needed to be followed and abide. So as a member of the society, so imagine when we can do everything we want, no boundaries, no rules, no limitations, when we can do things we want freely without hesitations, how can this affect the society? So this goes to the question, why do we need law? The law is expressed by codified legal standards, and it provides stability for our nation. In the present, the law is evolving because of how we want to be governed. Over the centuries, the law have evolved based on commonly understood societal concepts of right and wrong. So example of this is in the Philippines, we have a democratic government. So people uses their voices in issues regarding on laws, and sometimes if they feel like they are against the law or they don't want the law to be implemented, so the government is been able to change or improvise another law. Moral, ethics, and laws can be found in teaching. So these three are prominent part of teachers' work and their lives away from work. So what is the importance of ethics in teaching? So ethics in education helps run the system smoothly. It sets standards that are applicable and protect the interest of both learner and tutor. Teachers are responsible to help develop the personality of students and act as a mentor to them to influence their personal development and behavior. The core of teaching consists of four basic values: dignity, truthfulness, fairness, and responsibility. There are also legal and ethical responsibilities of being a teacher. First, teachers must model strong characteristics like perseverance, honesty, respect, lawfulness, fairness, patience, and unity. Second, as an educator, teacher must treat every student with kindness and respect without showing any favoritism, prejudice, or partiality. We have Republic Act 4670, otherwise known as the Magna Carta for Public School Teachers, was passed into law in view of providing professional rights and safeguards to our public school teachers in consideration of the exigency and level of difficulty of the exercise of their professions. Freedom of speech and expressions are two of the most basic and most important rights that teachers, like all professionals and citizens, have. This is something that can never be compromised. We go back to the study of ethics. Ethics is derived from the Greek word which means characteristic way of living. Its Latin equivalent is mos or mores, meaning tradition or custom. Ethos includes cultural mannerism, religion, politics, law, and social aspirations of group of people. In the study, ethos refers to those characteristics belonging to a man as a rational being endowed with intellect and free will. So the ethos of man is revealed in the following. First is the ability of man to distinguish between good and evil, right or wrong, moral and immoral. So there are actions, there are consequences in the society's perception. If our actions are for the benefit of the others, then they are good. However, if they are harmful to any, then they are bad. So the second is a man's obligation to do what is good and to avoid evil. Good is to be done and pursued, and evil is to be avoided. This is the first principle of ethical human action as articulated by Saint Thomas Aquinas, who relies on the classical wisdom of Aristotle and represent much of the Catholic tradition. In the contemporary world of bioethics, a similar principle is articulated using the terms beneficence and non-maleficence, which simply mean doing good and not doing evil. Humans in general should act for good, whether it be their own good, the good for their communities or their neighbors. And most of the time, whether in daily life, doing good is pretty straightforward affair. A very related example of this is, first, a mother does what is good when she feeds her children. Second, a doctor is doing good when she prescribes appropriate medicines. And lastly, a teacher is doing what is good when she helps students to learn. The third one is man's accountability for his actions, expecting reward or punishments. This is simply the result of what a person does. If a person is doing good, then he expects to be rewarded. So if he is doing bad, then he expects to be punished. Ethics is a philosophical study that examines values, actions, and choices to determine what is right or wrong. Core principles was established by great philosophers Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. In the 4th BC, they defined ethics as the science of morals. The field of ethics, or moral philosophy, investigates theories that can systematically describe what makes acts right or wrong. The 4 main branches of ethics include descriptive ethics, normative ethics, meta-ethics, and applied ethics. So first, we will talk about the descriptive ethics. Descriptive ethics deals with what people actually believe or made to believe to be right or wrong, and accordingly holds up the human actions acceptable or not acceptable or punishable under custom or law. However, the customs and law keep changing from time to time and from society to society. The societies have structured their moral principles as per changing time and have expected people to behave accordingly. Due to this, descriptive ethics is also called comparative ethic because it compares the ethics or past or the present ethics of one society and another. It also takes inputs from other disciplines such as anthropology, psychology, sociology, and history to explain the moral right or wrong. Is the normative ethics. Normative ethics deals with norms or set of considerations how one should act. Thus, it's a study of ethical action and sets out the rightness or wrongness out of the actions. It is also called prescriptive ethics because it rests on the principles which determines whether an action is right or wrong. The golden rule of normative ethics is doing to other as we want them to do to us. So you must be familiar with the golden rule. So in the normative ethics, this is applied. Since we don't want our neighbors to throw stones through our glass window, then it will not be wise first to throw stone through a neighbor's window. One is the meta-ethics. Meta-ethics or analytical ethics deals with the origin of the ethical concepts themselves. It does not consider whether an action is good or bad, right or wrong. Rather, it questions what goodness or rightness or morality itself is. It is basically a highly abstract way of thinking about ethics. Now, the key theories in meta-ethics include naturalism, non-naturalism, emotivism, and prescriptivism. So naturalist and non-naturalist believe that moral language is cognitive and can be known to be true or false. Emotivists deny that moral utterances are cognitive, holding that they consist of emotional expressions of approval or disapproval, and that the nature of moral reasoning and justification must be reinterpreted to take this essential characteristic of moral essential characteristics of utterances into account. The next one branches of ethics is the applied ethics. Applied ethics deals with a philosophical examination from moral standpoint of particular issues in private and public life, which are matters of moral judgment. This branch of ethics is very important for professionals in different walks of life, including doctors, teachers, administrators, rulers, and so on. There are also kinds of ethics. The first one is personal ethics. So what is a personal ethics? So personal ethics are ethical principles that a person uses when making decisions and behaving in both personal and professional settings. So these ethics influence various aspects of a person's life and help individuals develop their work ethic, personal and professional goals, and values. Individuals use their ethics to determine between right and wrong and influence how someone behaves in challenging situations. Each person's code of ethics varies, but many people share common ethics such as honesty and respect. So why are personal ethics important? Why are personal ethics important? A person's personal ethical principles are important for several reasons, including that they allow leaders to more effectively lead their teams. Second, instill a sense of trust and support in leaders. Third, give individuals a solid basis of which to determine the most appropriate action in any given situation. Fourth, improve the decision making of the process. Fifth, set a standard of behavior. And lastly, support motivation. What stops a person from stealing? What is that little voice born from conscience that holds a person in their steps? So that goes down to our second kind of ethics, which is the moral ethics. Morals are interpretation of right and wrong. Morals are learned from an early age and help us distinguish good conduct from bad, both in ourselves and others. When these morals are lumped together as a standard for society's behavior, they are called ethics. A system of morals that are studied, recommended, and accepted by society is ethics. The question is, who decides? Where do morals come from, and who gets to decide what's right and wrong? The answer to that question largely depends on the society and the region. Some areas are steeped in religious beliefs, deriving their morals from the religion. For example, Christians obtain morals from biblical and or church teachings of priests. So, regardless of where they came from, once morals are accepted by society, they become an unwritten code of ethics. Morals deemed normal for one society can seem outrageous to another. The third kind of ethics is the social ethics. The subject matter of social ethics has been conceived in two different ways. The first approach is one that draws distinction between moral choices that each individual must make and corporate decisions reached in actions taken by such collective bodies as corporations, municipalities, and nations. Characterized in this way, social ethics focuses on the policies and practices that shown or should rather govern social institutions. The second view of social ethics is rooted in the notion that all ethics are social in an important sense because they are socially constituted, embedded in a social matrix. This view focuses on the way in which individual moralities are shaped by social contexts and the way individual moral choices in turn shape social contexts. This overview of social ethics discusses both of these approaches. This next one is the professional ethics and the code of conduct. Professional ethics are principles that govern the behavior of a person or group in a business environment. Like values, professional ethics provide rules on how a person should act towards other people and institutions in such an environment. The code is an example of a codified set of professional ethics for those who choose to enter the immigration advice profession. The ethical principles. Ethical principles underpin all professional codes of conduct. Ethical principles may differ depending on the profession. For example, professional ethics that relate to medical practitioners will differ from those that relate to lawyers, teachers, or real estate agents. However, there are some universal ethical principles that apply across all professions, including honesty, trustworthiness, loyalty, respect for others, adherence to the law, doing good and avoiding harm to others, and lastly, accountability. Professional codes of conduct draw on these professional ethical principles as a basis for prescribing required standards of behavior for members of a profession. They also seek to set out the expectation that the profession and society have of its members. The intention of codes and conducts is to provide guidelines for the minimum standard of appropriate behavior in a professional context. Codes of conduct set alongside the general law of the land and the personal values of members of that profession. This kind of ethics is the environmental ethics. The environmental ethics is a branch of applied philosophy that studies the conceptual foundations of environmental values as well as more concepts, issues surrounding societal attitudes, actions, policies to protect and sustain biodiversity and ecological systems. What is an example of environmental ethics? There are many ethical decisions that human beings make with respect to the environment or the nature itself. For example, should humans continue to clear cut forests for the sake of human consumption? Many people believe they call it deforestation. For some reasons, they use these trees to make papers or other things that needed by the society, and they forgot that they already harm the environment? Or why should human continue to propagate its species and life itself? So these are the questions concerning the environmental ethics. So the last kind of ethic is the religious ethics. Religious ethics is a scholarly area that studies the many ways in which religion and ethics are interrelated. So the question is, can we be ethical without being religious? A long-standing debate has been whether ethics plays a role in religion. Most religions have an ethical component. Ethics, which is a major branch of philosophy, encompasses right conduct and good life. It is significantly broader than common conception of analyzing right and wrong. Ethics deals with ideas such as right, good, and duty, and these concepts were discussed in ancient Greece by Plato and Aristotle in the 3rd and 4th century BCE. A central aspect of ethics is the good life, the life worth living, or a life that is simply satisfying, which is held by many philosophers to be more important than traditional moral codes. The ancient Greeks called it eudaimonia, or happiness. The ancient Greeks believed that happiness was brought about by living one's life in accordance with the virtue positive traits of character.